Hi, very good afternoon. Uh, the panel discussion, the topic of the discussion is digital strategy for PSU for New India at 75. As since morning we have been discussing about as to how the digital transformation agenda of public sector organization are accelerating like never before, and there is an over reliance on technology in order to deliver services. Especially with the public sector, PSUs organization, this becomes quite important given the fact that public sector organization are an integral component of Prime Minister Atmanirbhar Bharat program and our aim of having an indigenous technology built within the country. So during this panel discussion, we are going to focus on as to how public sector organization are imbibing on digital transformation journey, what kind of process, application, networking, and technology elements that they are using. We'll also focus on an ideal tech mix. What should be the ideal tech mix for a PSU? And there will also be some focus on as to what we can do to make our public sector organization in terms of being globally competitive. So I'll begin with you, Mr. T. Peethambaran, sir. Uh, as you would have noticed during the pandemic, as other speakers have spoken in different panel discussion, that digital transformation for various organizations has become very important. There is a large focus on the resiliency part. And three component, which is compute, storage, and networking, has become really important. Those are fundamental. On that, you build your technology stack altogether. Would you like to share your experience as to how you look at and some of the things that you have done over the last 2.5 years? Something you could share on a information system point of view, sir.
Good afternoon. See, when you look at digitalization or digital transformation, we at Bharat Petroleum looked in the three compartments actually. One is digitization, because we use the word always almost similar. One is digitization, basically doing something physical, you make it digital. Then digitalization, that is bringing a digital tool to convert your physical to digital, your phygital actually. Then come to digital transformation. Digital transformation is basically is a cultural change. So we at Bharat Petroleum during pandemic, we formed a team, exclusive team actually. We call it as a Project Anubhav. Anubhav in Hindi means experience actually. So we made a team actually to completely digitalize the front end. That's the customer facing end actually. And for the customer facing end, we took a theme of three pillars actually. That is trust, providing trust to the customer, convenience to the customer, and personalization. And the second part was actually looking at the back end, how to improve the efficiency of the operations over the back end through automation, through digitalization, or through digitalization. And we, when you come to the digital transformation, basically it is a mass movement. I always say that actually it's a PPT way. It's not PowerPoint actually. People, process, technology on the same order. Technology alone cannot deliver anything, and technology alone cannot be a doer actually. Technology can be an enabler. That is the principle we use it actually. And what we did actually, basically, if you talk about customer side actually, we went back the customer, who is customers and who is in dealing with the customer actually. We asked them what is the customer pain points and what kind of technology we can bring it. And it was a bottoms up. It was not a tops down actually. It was a bottoms up initiative. We had almost 400 to 500 focus group discussions, brought the points there, what way we can remove the points. Then we designed a system and went back to the same offices or same people said actually this is what we brought it actually. If you allow me to give an example actually, we are a marketing organization, the oil marketing company. We have got 8 verticals in marketing. So when the customer comes to my retail outlet, we have got 20,000 retail outlets in India. When we come to a retail outlet, I don't know that customer is coming to my LPG department or LPG vertical. I don't know that customer is using my lube oil because I have all the data, but in different segment. So we wanted to give a unified view to the customer. That is why we brought a super app. We call it the Hello BPCL. If you today you go to Hello BPCL, you can see the Bharat Petroleum in a whole segment. That's the first digitalization for the customer. So he need not worry about where I should go. So he can see the retail part, he can see the LPG part, he can get the loop, everything is available. And simultaneously, I can also know it actually, whether this customer is coming to all my departments. So otherwise, I was missing the opportunity of cross-selling actually. Somebody is using my retail outlet, whether he is using my cylinder, whether he is using my lube oil, I was not knowing it actually. So that way we provide a super app to the customer for a convenience. Second, what we thought actually, today everybody go for a chat because they want to talk to the company. See, today we get around 2.1 crore customers in our retail outlet every day, physically. That's the biggest advantage, and simultaneously a disadvantage because I don't know the face of them actually. So we wanted to give a platform to them to interact with us actually, because physical interaction is not possible. That is why we brought a chatbot that is called Urja. When we brought the chatbot, we decided actually in a country like ours, English or Hindi alone is not sufficient. We brought a chatbot in 13 languages, and the data says actually 41% of the people use other than Hindi and English. So that means the local language is really working. And we get around 1.5 to 2 lakh transactions per day in the chatbot. So they can book the cylinder, they can check out petrol pump, where is the petrol pump, they can check out what kind of blue oil is required for what kind of vehicle. Everything is available. So what we did, the customer said, we brought the digitalization to take care of to remove the pain point of the customer, bring trust to the customer. While talking the trust, I can tell you, we brought a simple tool called as a U-fill. When you go to the retail outlet, normally we go to the retail outlet, we'll say you look at the zero. Normally car गाड़ी से उतरता है, तो आप zero देख लो, then you read the full reading, then you take the money, take the balance. These are all the pain points. It's a physical activity. We brought a tool actually. This is U-fill. You can just make a UPay payment anywhere, anytime. They will get a QR code. Just to come to a retail outlet, show the QR code to the machine get automatically reset. There is no manual intervention. And our people are there, just put the nozzle inside, but the filling is done, automatically cut, you can just push off. So the entire physical activity, we made some 90% of the part into digital, and you have to bring the car and go. So this is the way we brought each activity to take away the pain of the customer. Ultimately, we strongly believe our salary is paid by him, nobody else. So we took away the pain of the customer, bring each level, what kind of technology is required, and that is what we brought. And coming back to the back end, actually, the biggest automation done basically to digitalize the whole activity. We have got around 25 to 30,000 lorries every day carrying a lot of invoices physically. Today, everything is digitalized. There is no physical printing, and even there is no physical tender now. Everything is digital tender, so there is no paper business. And even the file approvals, everything is e-files. So completely paper, we removed it actually to the extent possible. Almost I can say that 90% all the paper business has been removed. That's the back end part of it. That's automatically improving the efficiency. And many operations where the data is available, we have automated the operation by removing the manpower and removing the manual labor also. One example I can tell you, we have got around 54 LPG plants. And 54 LPG plants are feeding 6,500 dealers every day. That way loads are going. Earlier, there were so many offices sitting there, they will plan it, which load has to go to which distributor. Today, my system decides. Because system knows that actually who is the distributor, where is it, what is his customer population, what is the demand, how much load has to go. And system decides this fellow has to send the load. Everything is automated. There is absolutely no manpower required. That's the digitalization we did.
Right. Yeah. This is wonderful. And I think 2 points that you touched upon. One is the data, integrated data platform, giving the visibility across your IT infrastructure, and then you can do a lot of stuff on that. Second, you also talk about the experience part, which ultimately that you provide to the internal customer and external customer also. Mr. Nandi, what we have been observing that to deliver that kind of customer experience, which Mr. Peethambaran was talking about, you need a very high end of automation, and there the role of next generation technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and maybe integrating different systems becomes really very important. Would you like to share, based on your experience at IOCL, as to how you look at the role of frontier technology in terms of bringing new innovation and possibly more agility within the PSU?
Good evening to everybody. Namaskar from Indian Oil, the Energy of India. You are right, actually, the digitalization is all about creating values and, creating experience. It is not only a certain technology, this is the way you implement the technology to get the benefit out of it. Digital has been the core of Indian Oil business right from beginning. And because customer is the focus, that is the core of our business, and because customer or business starts with customer, revolves around the customer, and ends with the customer. So all the deliverables, planning, everything is aimed at increasing the customer satisfaction, CSAT and CX. And in doing so, we have started our digitalization journey way back 2000 when we embarked on the journey on enterprise resource planning using SAP. And initially, 6-7 years, we are all involved in implementing SAP in our organization for implementing customer accounting, logistic management, And this was one of the largest implementation in Asia, right? And then later on, we started consolidation on this and what kind of values we can add on to that. Then we have also added our various business recently, CGD and all. Then we started our second paradigm shift in digital when we embarked on the journey on SDMS CRM, that is Secondary Dealer Management System, and Customer Relationship Management. While the SAP was inwardly looking and it was only our primary customer, that is digital, our business partners such as distributor dealers, the SDMS looks at our secondary customers because unless secondary customers are satisfied, my primary business will not proliferate, right? So we started with HDMS CRM, and we actually started doing an unified digital business ecosystem, wherein all my marketing strategies were unified and catering to all my LOBs, our lines of business, our retail, LPG, everything. And in that, we have appropriately infused various digital technologies, including AI, ML, and various other systems, so that, and in our digital journey, the analytics is very, very important part, because using these analytics only, we actually come to know what is the wish of the customer, how customer wants, because all these things we are doing, trying to satisfy, because we cater to 130 million customer for our LPG business, and all these 50,000 touch points, our dealer distributor community, that is our, which is being catered through our SAP or ERP. So we are using them, and through them we are actually satisfying these 130 million customers. So everywhere you are using analytics, and you are using big data, and customer interactions, customer entire life cycle management is very, very important for us. So our always the aim is how you actually utilize digitalization to create different moments of truth for the customer. Because even if the customer is given some product, but entire journey is digital. Because once, let's say, when you actually purchase something on a digital platform, right from thinking of the platform, right from wishing, carting, scouting for various opportunities, what are the better products there, and then ordering there, and tracking your load, getting that product, and giving the feedback. Entire journey is digitalized. So our companies always endeavor is to actually try to occupy customer's mind, to actually find out what is the wish of the customer, so that we can deliver. And through the digitalization, we are bringing efficiency, and we are also creating agility in the systems, so that we can actually derive lesser time to market to satisfy the customer.
Wonderful. Now I'll go to Mr. KRD. Mr. KRD, you heard two of the speaker mentioning about the importance of digital transformation as to how they are integrating different platform. Mr. Peethambaran also spoke about the importance of data. So what I would like to understand from you, given the fact that the digital transformation for PSU has increased like never before over the past many years, and especially the COVID pandemic has accelerated it further. There are a lot of new projects are being taken care of. Would you like to share based on the your organization experience, because you work across different geography, different types of companies and organization within public sector? What are those key elements that a public sector organization must focus on while embarking on a digital transformation journey?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, like you said, you're correct. I had some experience personally working across public sector, private sector. I was a consultant and a client. So I would like to bring in the experience, personal experience that I had. I'd also want to bring in the experience that we as IBM had gained working with some very large public sector organizations and governmental organizations, delivering some amazing digital transformational journeys, including at IOCL, where Mr. Nandy is leading the journey that he mentioned about the SDMS CRM platform. At SBI Yono is an IBM delivered project, CBEC, and many such things. So if we look back, and when we have these debates in our organization with tremendous respect that we have for the kind of size, scale, and digital transformations these large organizations embark on, few pointers come to us, and these would be helpful for every one of us, not only in public sector, but otherwise also that would be extremely useful. One of the most important things that we have noticed, and I should also admit the organizations are going towards that, is making sure that we have a just fair contract and scope of work that's very well defined. Because when we are taking up such huge programs, it's extremely important that both the client and consulting organizations like IBM are very clear about the scope of work and important aspects of the contract and the deliverables. That's if that is taken care of, knowing very well the internal organizational processes and also the adherence requirements that the large government and public sector organizations have, that will take away 90% of the discussions that we otherwise would have to have. That is, I think, one of the most important lessons that we have learned across the spectrum. Internally, in the client organizations, in these public sector organizations, one of the other important things, and by design, these organizations have to do that, is there is a tremendous churn of the practitioners, of the team members from the organizations, and that's by design. I'm not talking about forced attrition that would happen from typical other organizations in terms of attrition, but these are internal transfers, job rotations, things like that. And what happens as a consequence of that is there's tremendous knowledge that the projects and the employees actually get embedded with as they embark on these programs, but they tend to get lost as they get into a different role. So how do we manage that churn? How do we manage to make sure that the transitions are well managed when these kind of huge organizational internal movements are happening? Is another important thing that we have noticed that it plays an extremely important aspect. A third thing that I will speak about in all of this is sometimes, and particularly in digital technologies, we are learning some new things together. Consulting organizations as well as the large public sector organizations, and the size and scale is enormous, as I mentioned some time back. It would be extremely helpful if actually together we go through an equivalent of a proof of concept, a minimum viable product MVP kind of a concept, and then take it and scale it up to the real large program. Because we learn a lot of things during the course of the project, because these projects and the size and scale, again, every time I come back to mentioning that again, the business processes, the complexities, the variations, the requirements that actually happen in the market, the kind of competitive environment these organizations are working under, and the need to fulfill those requirements, these are all ever changing. And I'm also very respectfully saying that some of these organizations are run the most efficient, most professional manner, and give the best competition to not only Indian organizations but to global MNCs in their competition. For them to actually be ready for that kind of competition and to be agile and delivering to the market, they need to continue to keep scaling up and modifying their processes and be agile in the market. How do we actually do that in a rigid, contracted kind of a structure that we embark on a digital transformation program? That's what I would say is the third important thing that we should all be mindful of. And a fourth thing, which is extremely important as when they begin the program itself, is selection. How do you select the right partner when you embark on a digital transformation program? And there is tremendous amount of movement that already occurred in these organizations. Traditionally, if you look back 10 years, 15 years back, even the selection of the partners used to be on a lowest cost, lowest tender basis. But now we see some tremendous amount of improvements that are happening. I'm aware organizations like BPCL, IOCL, and other public sector organizations are going through what is called a QCBS selection process, a strong weightage for technical and commercial. So this is an extremely good practice that we noticed is adopted and which should be adopted across the board. That would be extremely helpful to select the right kind of partner. In doing so, one small improvement that, if I'm permitted to say, that we have learned we should be doing is in the technical scoring, how do we bring in a bit more strong subjectivity? And that's subjectivity not towards being biased, but in a fair amount of subjectivity, so that while there is a set of documentation that's validated using paperwork, but there is also an element of validation that needs to be done by the selection team to select the right kind of partner. So these are the 4 or 5 things that I would say are extremely important lessons that we had learned, that I have personally learned, as well as we have been experiencing in working with some very large public sector organizations. But the good news I would also want to share as I end my part here is there is tremendous agility, there is tremendous learning together we are making, and we are making at the behest of the public sector organizations in improving and making sure that we embark on these digital transformation programs in a manner that leads to success. The two programs that Mr. Nandy had spoken about during his speech about the SAP transformation early 2000s and the CRM SDMS transformation that they are running for themselves. We are very proud to be associated as IBM with both the programs. We are very proud that we have been given an opportunity to actually deliver that success for them. So that's what is ultimately what we as professionals will all look to get there. And that is what I think public sector organizations are actually delivering to this country and to the economy here. That's what is my point of view.
No, Mr. KRD, you're absolutely spot on the part of advisory, because that not only enable you to find out what is your actual requirement, what do you need, and have a proper understanding before actually embarking on any project. So those visualization, having a visibility as to what we should be doing, and those blueprint is really, really important. Moving on now, I'll go to Mr. Mathur. Mr. Mathur, you come from an organization which is, I can say, digital first, possibly mobile first also, exploring. But digital first and mobile first means, there is a lot of integration which would have already happened digitally on a integrated platform. That means we are actually collecting a lot of data in a certain data lake. Somewhere, maybe it could be isolated, maybe integrated. That means the processing of those data for the analytical purpose. Second, the security of the data becomes really important. And since a lot of digitization is happening across most of the public sector organization, government department, serious efforts are being made on the cybersecurity part. Would you like to share as to how you look at the security part and some of the learning that you would have from the Chris example, if you could share something based on that?
Thank you. It's okay. Can you hear? Yeah. So thanks for that. That's a very interesting and important question for us. Data and its security is very important for everybody, and especially for someone like an organization like the Indian Railways. Chris is a service provider actually to the Indian Railways. Whatever applications we make for the Indian Railways, with a few exceptions. Some other applications we have made for some other organizations, but primarily we are working for the Railways. Now, Railways is a very information intensive organization across the world. Railways are inherently information intensive because, as you know, a train can run only on one track. Only one train runs on one track. So you have to ensure that you know where your train is and you are able to manage it in such a way that you run so many services and all the trains run in the most optimal manner across a prefixed set of tracks. So that is where the information intensity actually comes from. And that means a lot of data moving across. Traditionally, this has been moving on paper or later on through telecom, through voice channels. So if you see a railway system, even when there was no IT, there was a lot of information management. And now with IT, that information and that data assumes great importance. And now how we have approached it for Indian Railways is that this is all part of our enterprise architecture effort. We are we realized through the years we had developed a number of applications, we had isolated data stores, and we realized that the time had come to look at an integrated approach, look at a top-down approach through which we could have a consistent set of data. Otherwise, one of our problem was that suppose a simple thing like a station, a railway station. A railway station has got number of definitions for different departments. If I am a civil engineering department and I want to maintain a railway station, then I maintain a separate set of parameters. If I am the operations department, then I look at the station as a place where my trains come to stop and passengers get on and get off. If I am a commercial person, Then I look at the station as a place where I sell a certain amount of tickets. So all of these definitions were scattered across the organization in different data stores, in different databases. And the first activity that we have taken up, that we took up, and we are still in the process, is to take all of these master data elements and link them together, unify them, maybe not physically, because it is not always possible to do a physical unification, but at least logically. So that is how the entire data layer of our enterprise architecture actually, we have started to look at critically, identify the real world entities that data models, and then ensure that we have a consistent data store across the organization, and that can be used for analytics, analysis. And now here we found that when we started a formal program of analytics, we found that some of the results depended on the accuracy and the correctness of the data. So the data quality is important, and now we have started to take some initiatives for enhancing the quality of the data. You can't take data-driven decisions if the data itself is not correct. So those are some of the things that have come up.
Right. Absolutely. I'll come back to you again now. We are also joined by Mr. Sudhanshu Naithani, Executive Director from BHAIL. So I'll request you to, if you could join. I'll go to Mr. Vidya Sagar. Mr. Sagar, since you come from an organization, NSIC, that work across MSME in a very huge way, and you are in two roles. One is the capacity building, other is the digital part of it. And what we observed that during the pandemic, this was one of the sector which was really hit because the large corporate had some level of integrated platform and they were able to go online on the go. I mean, VPN and everything they were able to use. But the small organizations suffer quite heavily, and then gradually they picked up. Would you like to share two things? One is what has been your assessment of the pandemic and as to how technology actually helped in mitigating it. Second, also on the security part. Security part, what I would like to ask you from a capacity building point of view, especially for a small organization. You might not be having CISO or CTO, right? Oh, if your size is pretty small, but you need security, right? Because the compliance has to be met, there are a lot of other things has to be met. So what is your general assessment? Are we on right direction when you look from your organization perspective, when you are enabling some of the MSMEs to go digital?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed Ujaley ji. So, very valid question. We, NSIC, are our main mandate is to help and facilitate MSME to go to next level. So, if I talk about pandemic, what you mentioned, yes, there was a lot of uncomfort in the MSME sector. But somehow I would say I take care of the digital services department, and digital services means providing digital services to MSME, digital services facilitation division. So since I come from corporate background and then I joined PSU, so I was already working on that, and I was to some extent I was already ready before that COVID for certain areas, and which really helped us. So one of that example is we have e-marketing portal called msmemart.com for helping MSMEs become more visible and more discoverable, because market access is one of the biggest problem apart from the finance which is faced by the MSMEs. So we had what we had done in that MSME Mart was that we had made it completely paperless, and even for MSMEs as well as for our field offices. Otherwise, earlier there was a requirement of this form filling and all those, but we had made completely paperless, and which resulted into, if you notice that April to June, which was the first pandemic lockdown, first quarter, so we had 236% more beneficiaries joining on the portal as compared to the same period when it was normal. Maybe because they realized that they need to hop on this digitalization, and they need to, because and maybe factories were closed and all those, so they could do that. But that was very very good learning for us, that yes, MSMEs are ready, and if I mean, they can be facilitated with these services or the tools, and information is available at in their language and at their level, then I think it can really help them. People are ready. That was one. Second was, all of us know that as you said, large organization are anyway ready, and we are adopting all those technologies and tools. But MSME adoption of these technologies is a challenge. So to mitigate that, or to encourage that adoption of technology, we had launched a new scheme called ICT Digital Services. So what we were trying to do is that it was done on the aggregation model, and we aggregated some of the most common services required by the MSME. Say, for example, basic accounting, SaaS-based accounting software, GST compliances, or ERP, or CRM, or maybe HR management. These CAD come basic, so whether it's in manufacturing or service sector. So we had impaneled some of the leading service providers from India, to name a few, like Joho, Dun and Bradstreet, Bharti Airtel Enterprise Solution, then U-Books, which is again listed on GST and the accounting software. So we offered bouquet of services to MSMEs to adopt this technology, which can really help them increase their efficiency, reduce the cost, automate things, and maybe become more organized, right? And with this formalization of the economy, and bringing more and more MSME into formal system through GST or otherwise, a lot of changes which is happening, it was more required. So these two key initiatives we at NSIC launched for the MSME, helping them. And it was in fact recognized by the government. So with our effort, Ministry of MSME have announced a new component under procurement and marketing support scheme, which is the one of the flagship scheme of Ministry of MSME, Government of India, to help MSMEs. So so under this, a new component have been launched, which is adoption of e-commerce platform. So government want MSMEs to adopt e-commerce so that their marketing problem is solved, or maybe they get more visible, they become more discoverable to the corporates or to prospective buyers, and for all sourcing, subcontracting, and all those opportunities. So government have announced 75% subsidy up to 25,000 rupees for adopting e-commerce portal, NSIC B2B portal, msmemart.com, for annual membership, contingency expenses, which includes photography, cataloging, advertising, and all those. So that's again, and if you see, more than 90% of MSME database, which of almost 6.5 crore, is micro. So I think it's a huge step forward, and it have been announced recently, just 2 weeks back. And so this is, I think, will be very very helpful, especially for people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, bringing them to in this farm. Other big development which have happened again some 10 days back is NSIC, this msmemart.com have been, MOU have been signed with the ministry to integrate it with the Udyam portal. Udyam portal is one of the portal where all the MSMEs have to register if they want any government support or benefit or subsidy and anything. So that's mandatory, Udyam registration. So as per the Niti Aayog direction, this initiative have been taken. So now any MSME registering on Udyam portal will automatically be onboarded on this MSME Mart to provide them this e-marketing support of visibility and discoverability.
Wonderful. I mean, those are quite effective and quite encouraging schemes for the promotion of small and medium enterprise in the country. Now, I'll go to Mr. Sudhanshu Naithani. Mr. Naithani, we have been discussing about the digital transformation agenda of the public sector organization, and we focused on as to how the data has become very important, how the integration of different platforms have become important. We also focus on the cybersecurity part as to why we need to take a new approach altogether. And Mr. KDR also mentioned about the advisory part in the beginning itself, while you are conceiving an idea, the discovery, what is really needed, what is required to do a particular project. What I would like to understand from you that what should be the key digital priorities for a PSU? Because, and I'm asking you in the context of being globally competitive, which is one of the integral component of Vision 2025, which Honorable Prime Minister has set up, that our PSU should be globally competitive. We should be able to match our made in India product with the global product. There are different standards to match with. How technology can enable that? If you could share your views on that.
You're asking us a very interesting question about the priorities that we have right now in front of us. Being globally competitive has been something which, at least as I represent BHL, and we have a mark in 88 countries in all the 5 inhabited continents in the world. So we have that presence, and all this presence has been due to the fact that we are competitive. But today, we see this problem in two contexts. One context is the change of the business itself in respect of the energy transformation that we are seeing. The other part is in respect of the capabilities that we have. So when we are talking about the products or the offerings that we have for the market, uh, gone are the days when you were able to meet a customer specification and that would decide your fate. Today, every customer wants to see something more than what you've been doing. So embedding digital into what you're doing, and there are umpteen horizons available to people in the world today to do things. Uh, Traditionally, for complex industries like power stations or process industries, gathering data has been something which has always been done, because you want to look at the patterns at which the machine's been behaving, any disturbances, any trippings. You do a SOE analysis and then come back. But then all these things are basically transactions. These are incidents which are mapped within the historians and they remain there. Today, the challenge is how do we integrate it all together? We have already taken some steps in bringing this kind of a data from running stations. There are platforms available where we can bring this data back. We can build upon this data into a situation where we can do analytics on this data, and uh, there can be two options. Either we can do the product improvement by itself, the other is we can do some kind of a predictive maintenance, or we can do a kind of an operational guarantee, this thing for the operator. So these are the kind of approaches that help you in being competitive in respect of the offering that you're putting to the ultimate customer. The other part that I see in this context is how do we become digitally more competent? And that is probably the more challenging part of these activities, because investing in traditional IT resources is probably the easy part. Though with cloud and with the complexity of applications and the interrelationships and the substrates that are happening on top of these applications is by itself a very complex subject. But I consider this comparatively simpler. We are looking at a much bigger investment across the people in the field, the people who are actually engaged in the engineering, manufacturing, dispatch, erection, commissioning, because there is a kind of a silo that defines the way these people are doing their things. Getting integrated digitally, you know, is a challenge where the IT part is no longer the IT engineer's responsibility. The knowledge that is there, the data which is coming in, the analytics that we do, the native intelligence that need to be put in, the experience that needs to be put in, building the analytics for improving things. These are things that traditionally we've been looking at service providers to do these kind of things, or it is not done at all. So for the PSUs, and all PSUs today have a very rich, I would say, base of experience, of knowledge, which no external partner can replicate. They can, of course, help. They can be the lubricants, but this utilizing this base layer of experience in improving what we are doing, the way we are doing, how we are doing, at what point in time are we doing. This, to my mind, is the biggest investment that all of us as PSCs have to make in the change that we want to make to become globally competitive. Thank you.
So we are almost exhausted our time. So just one last question. Maybe I'll just ask to Mr. KDR. Both Mr. Liton Nandy and Mr. Naithani has spoken about the analytics part. And what is really happening with most of the PSU, they have huge amount of OT data. And that OT data is not at all open for anything. there are some thought process going on. Can we actually use some analytics tool on that and can give amazing value out of that? But the challenge is the security, because you are opening your OT data. From an industry perspective, I know it was not part of the discussion, but I'm just asking you, from an industry perspective, is there any way that we can help the public sector organization address that challenge of the security that they have on their mind, and because of that, they are not able to possibly utilize or harness the humongous 50-year, 40-year data that they have under the OT, completely air gap right now?
Absolutely, very relevant point that you brought up here. And I should also admit, hearing from this rich panel, some of the discussions and some of the deliberations that they had spoken about point to some amazing avenues of education and information for all of us. And you correctly also pointed out about the huge, humongous amount of data the public sector organizations are holding, and the size and scale. For example, Mr. Peethambaran spoke about 20,000 retail outlets and the footprints of 1.3 crores everyday footfalls. Mr. Nandy spoke about something like 50,000 plus touch points and 135 million consumers that they are dealing with. And kind of data, my co-panelist from BHEL spoke about 83 countries they are working in, and they are collecting data from the source systems and analyzing them and looking to analyze them. So these are extremely important insights that we can drive, but obviously all these organizations and many more are operating what Indian government recognizes as critical infrastructure. And critical infrastructure has to be protected, safeguarded, and that's where the information security points of view as well as cyber security and OT security comes in. Our observation as IBM, and we had been working with and not only the government organizations, PSUs, but also in private sector, is that I think India as a country and our clients as well as the eminent organizations that I'm speaking about had made significant and tremendous movement in securing themselves from the information security and to a large extent on the cyber security point of view. There is a gap for sure on the OT security, the IT to OT integration security and all of that. And we find that to be if I have to encapsulate into 2 points, potentially it drills down to two aspects. There may be many more, but primarily two. One of this is that lots of these the systems, the operations technology systems, have been built over many, many years, maybe 20 years, some of them are 25 years, or maybe some of them are even more older. So the kind of upgrades that typical in IT technologies go through, the operations technology do not go through. That effectively means, and personally also had experienced that in some instances we had seen Windows technologies which were maybe Windows 7 or even previous, going back to 2000, which were there in a SCADA system or a database or in a DCS system running, helping run the plant control systems. While the plant control systems are upgraded, the underlying infrastructure is not upgraded. That poses a huge problem from a cyber security point of view. Second thing, which is extremely again important, is our colleagues again from BHL, he had spoken about that. The imperative of the field engineers and everybody else is towards their primary task, which is either construction, operation, and things like that. Has there a change management that has happened for them to really understand and appreciate that the data that's being created, when it is effectively monetized, analyzed, insights are being run, is that adequate? Is that adequately protected, secured? I do not think that change management has occurred. So these are the two primary things if we can actually work on to improve the cyber security. Then tools, technologies, upgrades, everything else will come in. But there has to be, I think, a program, a huge program, I would call, which is required to be run by these eminent public sector organizations across the country, and also obviously the other organizations, to make sure that the underlying technologies are upgraded, the operations technology systems are current, and the change management to make sure that the field engineers, operators, superintendents in the plants, everybody understands the need to be secure what kind of data is being. That's what I would call is an imperative.
Mr. Nandy, would you like to add something? Yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. In fact, what Mr. KRD has told us is absolutely right. In fact, in Indian Oil, we have already started the journey. As you are rightly told, so long this OT system was air gap, but since my requirement is there, digital needs to proliferate, I cannot keep like that, right? So in addition to securing the entire ecosystems through defense in depth and 360 participate cybersecurity postures, we also need to also take care of the cybersecurity on this interface between IT and OT. That is very, very important. So that we have already started, and because unless we can take the benefit of the data which is being generated, enormous data from our machines which are running, so we have already started and we are bringing to our data management platform which we have already created. The OT data is being utilized there, such as example like preventive maintenance and various parameters. So we have started that journey and we are actually taking care of the business requirement as well as at the same time securing on a holistic perspective in Indian Oil.
Wonderful. So we have completely exhausted our time. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist. I think you all spoke about the importance of digital transformation at 75 and the role of PSU. I mean, you all come from a diverse background, diverse department, and all of them have done amazing work during the pandemic, especially on digitization. We all focus on the data, cybersecurity, integration of the platform, security of OT, using analytics and all. So thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you.